Welcome into Payoff Pitch. We are Action Network's MLB betting podcast, Tuesday, July 25th. Great to have you joining us. Brendan Glasheen with Sean Zerillo, and Anthony Tabundo is on the program. We're getting back in our routine of having the regular recurring guests in their allotted times. We have a full slate to get to. Please join us for Payoff Pitch Monday, Tuesday, and Friday during the season. Hit that subscribe button if you don't mind. Also, leave us a 5-star rating. If you have comments or concerns, ways to make the podcast better, if you hate people, we look at all of them. We'll take it. We'll digest it and try to get better here down the stretch before we hit the month of August. Again, I think a week from today, trade deadline. So that's fun. We'll be on the lookout for how we're going to approach that. ActionNetwork.com, Action Network app, plenty in there as well that we will get to. As I said, though, full slate. We don't necessarily get to every game. We get to actionable content, actionable games. So with that being said, Zerillo, how would you, when you look at the board late last night into this morning, what jumps out to you as a best bet?
Minnesota Twins, both halves, first 5 innings and full game, up to about minus 140 for the first 5 and minus 122 for the full game. This is a matchup that we bet last week. Same two starting pitchers, George Kirby and Pablo Lopez. We bet this game at about plus 120 for the full game. It closed at plus 105. Similar story to yesterday with that Castillo matchup going against Kenta Maeda, where we got CLV. And then based on the home field advantage switch, right, going from Seattle to Minnesota, you would expect that plus 103 closing line to become about minus 125 for Minnesota, going from being on the road to being at home with the same pitching matchup, assumably the same lineups. Have to see the status of Edouard Julien. Hurt his shoulder sliding yesterday, and he has been the Twins' best hitter for the last month or so. So definitely need to keep an eye on that injury, but based off of just same pitchers, same lineups, different ballparks, with the different team being the home team, should be about minus 125 for Minnesota. So I projected it at minus 132. And, you know, it's basically the expected swing that you would have going from Seattle to Minnesota, because I projected the last game at about plus 103, plus 105. So everything sort of lines up. Just in terms of how the pitching matchup plays out, Pablo Lopez, the better underlying indicators this season, 3.2 expected ERA, George Kirby closer to 4, career best strikeout rate, better strikeout minus walk rate than Kirby, but Kirby has the lowest walk rate in baseball. So he does not give up any free base runners. Solo shots when people go deep against him is often what occurs, but his stuff plus, pitching plus metrics are better than what Lopez offers. So a bit of a discrepancy between, you know, the expected ERA, the pitch modeling numbers, but I still make Minnesota, as I said, much more comfortable favorites than what the betting market suggests here. Minus 140 first 5, minus 122 full game, just to reiterate my price targets. And then also I like the under in this matchup as well, up to about minus 107. I made this total closer to 7.5. I bet the over 7.5 for the game in Seattle. I'm betting the under here based on, you know, the difference in the wind and the weather and what have you. So Minnesota and the under for me.
When you look at that, just out of curiosity, I should have asked you this yesterday, but when you look at two teams that are facing each other and two pitchers facing each other on the same day, do you try not to read too much into that and look at the bigger picture, or are you picking apart Kirby last start against Minnesota, 7 innings, 4 hits, no runs, no walks, 10 strikeouts? Are you trying to you're trying to look at the bigger picture sometimes too, right?
Yeah. I mean, it'd be easy to just look at that Kirby start and go, wow, he dominated the Twins.
That's what I mean.
He's gonna dominate them again. Yeah, it's not as simple as that. I wish it were that simple. But no, it's, you know, maybe he just had his best stuff that night, and maybe tonight he doesn't. Pitchers talk about all the time. They have 10 starts where they have their best stuff, 10 starts where they have their worst stuff, and 10 starts where they kind of have to battle through it and figure it out. So that might have been one of his best 10 starts of the season. You don't really know what he had that night or how he was feeling that night relative to any other night. We just sort of have to project these guys out as we have them. So yeah, the Maeda Castillo game played out a bit differently last night than the first iteration did, and I would expect this one too as well.
Okay. I just think sometimes that's worth bringing up because some people might just be like, oh, look, he dominated them last start. How do you not take the Mariners? That kind of approach to life into betting.
Yeah, maybe the Twins come in with a different plate approach tonight, look to get a bit more aggressive since they know he's not going to walk anybody and start swinging aggressively at first pitches. And yeah, it could completely change their game plan. It's not going to be the same exact plate approach for these Twins hitters tonight, I would assume.
Yeah, last night was any indication too. Roller coaster, ninth inning that forced extras there between the Twins and the Mariners. DeBundo, you like Minnesota too. I just saw in our doc here. Why do you like the Twins? Anything to add?
Well, the MLB schedule makers are lazy, I've decided, because way too often we get these back-to-backs where, and the Orioles and Twins just did this, where the Twins played the Orioles in Baltimore one weekend, and then the next weekend they just flipped the series. So this is now the 6th consecutive time where the Twins will play the Mariners in the last week and a half, where I will have the Minnesota Twins on the money line, which is kind of funny and how it works out, just kind of how the pitching matchups worked and where I am on certain pitchers. And I'm in agreement with Sean. Minnesota Twins, best bet -120 out there right now. We both bet the Twins yesterday. We both bet the Twins last week in the Castillo-Maeda matchup. We both bet them in the Kirby-Lopez matchup. Kirby shoved. When we could look at the stuff numbers, it was just a dominant command outing for Kirby, even better than normal, 112 location plus in that outing. His fastball stuff was actually down relatively, but the Twins still couldn't hit him because he was, painting corners. And Kirby has that ability. I don't have a huge difference between Kirby and Lopez in terms of overall talent. Kirby's going to miss fewer bats, but he's also not going to walk as many guys. Lopez with the changeup, always effective. His strikeout rate has ballooned this year up, to elite levels. I'm not sure I believe that will hold, but still impressive. And then the biggest thing for me is that the Twins did not have to use Duran last night. They played extra innings on Sunday, so their bullpen is a little bit taxed overall, but their best reliever is available. He didn't pitch last night. They were able to win without using him. The Mariners did use Munoz and Sewald. Mariners have better bullpen depth-wise, but overall better lineup for Minnesota at home, -120.
All right. DeBundo, summer concerts are back, so maybe that's what baseball's running into. The summer of Taylor Swift, Luke Combs, go right down the list. Maybe that's what the problem is. So they have to be lazy with the schedule. Keep that in mind sometimes. When you're the commissioner of sports, you can make those changes.
Look, I just wish, and they do this for other teams too. Like you'll play a team, like the Phillies played the Reds twice in April. They won't see them again for the rest of the season. Then they'll play the Mets, the last 3 weeks of the season where they only play them 3 times. They balance it out a little more. So that, you don't see a team once for a week and a half and then never see them again. I think that's just less interesting. Like I just saw the Twins and Mariners play 4 games in Seattle last week. I don't need to see the exact same pitching matchups. And we're actually going to talk about another game later where these two pitchers are matching up against one another for the 3rd time in 3 weeks.
Bundo, next commissioner, Rob Manfred, he's coming for you. He's going to make these changes. Let's and to be like Twins, we've been Twins heavy. I feel like on this podcast for best bets. All of BJ's been on them as well, a ton. So
Twin Syndicate, we're opening one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on. If we're going to find out if we're going to fade the public today, we were at the public yesterday. Pittsburgh delivered against the San Diego Padres. The public was onto something. And we got the Subway Series as our featured matchup in this segment. 78% of the bets, 95% of the money coming in on the New York Yankees. They are home hosting the New York Mets. Justin Verlander on the mound against Domingo Germán. National TV game tonight on TBS. Zerillo, you have been your Mets, man. You've been consistent on this though, in spots where Scherzer's pitching or Verlander. You have been willing to fade these big name arms, and who knows if they get moved at the deadline. I heard Buster Olney talk about this on Sunday when the Mets played the Red Sox, that it's going to be difficult to do possibly because of the money and yada, yada. But who knows how many starts Verlander has left, but you're in on the, you're going to stay out of the money line pool, and you actually like an over here. So a fade of both Verlander and Germán.
Well, I bet the money lines earlier, they're out of range from where I like them. Okay. So at this point, with all the public piling in on the Yankees, the fact that I bet them overnight, I'm sure people tell that. And then I'm sure there were other big bets on the Yankees as well where they were, but now it's moved down beyond my price targets. And I don't think there's any value left in terms of betting the money line. You need plus 125 for the first 5 innings to bet the Yankees and about plus 109, plus 110 for the full game in order to bet them, in my opinion, and still have an edge on the matchup. But a bet that I still think has value is the over 8.5. I bet this at over 8 yesterday, projected it closer to 9, about 8.9 runs. Domingo Germán obviously had that perfect game. lovely to add to his season long line. But if you take that out, he's been a
Don't
below average starting pitcher. 98 pitching plus rating, 93 stuff plus, 408 expected ERA. And then in terms of Justin Verlander, there's a noticeable drop compared to last year in the past couple of years. He had his best start of the season in his last outing against the White Sox, 8 innings, 7 strikeouts, 1 run allowed. But his fastball velocity was actually at a multiple year low in that outing. And he had a 92 stuff plus rating, 98 stuff plus on his fastball. So the start looked good on paper, but he was facing an offense that can't hit right-handed pitching, and his velocity numbers were down. His slider stuff plus was down as well. So stuff plus for Verlander overall last year when he won the AL Cy Young in Houston, 118. This year, 107. And as I said in that last start, was down to 92. His strikeout rate is down about 13% over a 2-year period. This is no longer ace level Justin Verlander. This is 3.5 ERA Justin Verlander, a number 2 type starter, an effective pitcher, but no longer Cy Young caliber Verlander with a below average strikeout minus walk rate, 12.7%. League average is 14.2%. So everything for Verlander trending in the wrong direction, but the strikeout rate is the most noticeable among them. And one last thing I want to mention, Justin Verlander, the reason why his ERA has always been about a half run better than his underlying indicators, go look at his career strand rate. You know, we talk all the time about this guy can't maintain a high strand rate, 80%, whatever. It's going to regress towards league average about 73%. Throughout his career, Justin Verlander has been a guy who has maintained a strand rate way higher than the major league average. The thing is, he's always been able to rear back, dial up that fastball, and get a little bit extra on it to blow away hitters with men on base, where he's saving it when he's pitching with the bases empty. He doesn't have that ability to do it anymore, and you've seen the ERA align with that expected mark. So that's who Verlander is now, in my opinion, closer to a 3.5 ERA guy, not a sub-3 ace level pitcher.
Mets lineup has had its struggles. Let me ask you this. Can you glean anything from the Yankees and how they looked offensively? I know they didn't put up a bunch of crooked numbers, but they did enough to be an over team against Kansas City. Have they turned a little bit of a corner, a small C, a corner without Judge? Did you take anything from that Kansas City series for their offense?
No, I think they were just playing bad pitching. Their offensive splits are still really bad without Judge in the lineup. They've still basically ranked as a bottom 5 offense without him in there. So they need him back if they want a chance at making a playoff run this year. It seems unlikely given the strength of that division that they can even, not get back to the top, but make a serious run in the playoffs, even if they get there with all the injuries they've had with how Rodon looks. So yeah, they need Judge back in there. This Yankees offense without him is a clear bottom 10 unit.
The Bundo, public likes the Yankees, public likes the over. Can you make sense of it and why the people like New York?
Yeah, I mean, Verlander
the
coming
Yankees.
off his...
I should be specific. I said
yeah,
New York.
Which New York? Yeah, no, yeah. I don't like either New York, but I do like the Domingo Germán under strikeouts. Quick note on Verlander. Swinging strike rate is 8 or 9.1%, which is the first time he's been below 10 since 2014. Wow. He was a different pitcher back then. That was back in Detroit. He's been consistently above average there. Zone rate career low. So, he's starting to become a bit of a nibbler. Which is troubling long-term in terms of like what he is as a pitcher. We saw signs of it last year. He just never gave up that clutch hit like you talked about, Sean. I like Domingo Germán under 5.5 strikeouts, minus 115 out there. Now, this is all about like what the true talent of Germán is. So, he has seen his strikeouts jump this year, but it's not really backed up by anything in the stuff or the other underlying numbers for him. His zone rate is down this year. He's getting a lot more chases. But when he's in the zone, he's getting hit just as much as normal. As much as the Mets offense has been, struck for being feeble this year, they still don't strike out much. They're bottom 5 in the league in strikeout rate, bottom 5 against right-handed pitching. Germán has struck out 25% of hitters this year, which is a big jump from last year's 19 when he wasn't quite as good. But, rest of season projections like the Bat and others still have him pretty well below a strikeout per inning. And the stuff plus projected K rate is also lower than that too, 21%. So if you put him closer to that number against this lineup, I think 5.5 is awfully high. So I like the under for Domingo Germán strikeouts.
Want to mention too, before we jump off this game, Brandon Nimmo dinger prop, just Yankee Stadium. And I've written up in the past this year, he's swinging noticeably harder. His ISO is up. His expected slug is up. His strikeout rate is up. It's very evident. Brandon Nimmo got paid and is selling out for power just a little bit. So like his left-handed swing in the Yankee Stadium for a dinger.
All right, very good. But a dinger Tuesday where Zerillo weighs in first before DeBundo.
Yep.
I'm washed.
DeBundo's got has something for us at the end of the show for Dinger Tuesday. Underdogs for Tuesday. Full slate. Zerillo, what team might jump out to you?
Yeah, this is not a good slate for underdogs, to be completely honest. And I had a difficult time selecting one as my top underdog. I'm going to go right back to the Pittsburgh Pirates, though, at about plus 230. Projected them closer to plus 205. We talked about the Pirates yesterday. There's nowhere in this matchup that I can say, yes, they have a definitive edge here. They also, seems like Nick Gonzalez got hurt yesterday running the bases. I don't think he will be back in their lineup today, and maybe not for the rest of the season. I hope he's doing okay, but that looked like a scary injury for one of their top prospects. So, takes a little bit of sting out of their lineup, a little bit of the youthfulness out of their lineup, but it does make them easier to project. They're going to put a guy like Tucupita Mercado back in there instead of him. But yeah, the Pirates at plus 230, you could bet that down to about plus 220. The A's at plus 220. The Royals at plus 180, the Marlins at plus 180. These are all teams I'm considering for today. Haven't actually pulled the trigger on any of them yet, but after this podcast, we're going to go back through the board and see which of them might be worth a poke, because I think at least one or two of them are teams I'll bet. I think all four are teams you could potentially justify, but don't want to just blindly round robin these underdogs.
So you don't think Blake Snell, 7 walks the other night against Toronto, seems like a bounce back spot. I know he was interviewed during the Sunday Peacock game, and he was pretty pissed at himself for the walks. And we know the Blake Snell Cy Young rise up the odds boards. No concern there that he could have a big bounce back night.
He's been a little
I guess what I'm trying to say is any fade of Snell.
He was really shaky in that last start, the 7 walks. The start before that, he might have had 4 walks, but he only had 7 strikeouts. The command has gone away a little bit in the past couple of starts. He found it completely for 2 months, and now it seems like it might be gone again. So, just a small speculation probably against them, if at all. All these underdogs, like I said, I don't love any of them by any means. So all of these plus 200 underdogs might be playing them small today. But Snell really just the past 2 starts has not been nearly as impressive as the 2 months that preceded it.
17 walks and 21 innings in 4 starts in the month of July for Blake Snell. Wow. DeBundo, underdog for Tuesday. What team jumps out to you?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim plus 115 against the Detroit Tigers. Eduardo Rodriguez, a bit of a reclamation project, had a really tough year personally and kind of with off the field stuff in the last year, and has never been a dominant stuff guy, but has always gotten by with his command. But I just can't really get past the offensive edge that's pretty drastic for the Angels here, even without Mike Trout. Still project as a top 8 lineup against left-handed pitching this season. Tigers, we've said this repeatedly, how much worse they are against righties. They get a righty here. Kerry Carpenter in the lineup certainly helps, but otherwise, like, this lineup doesn't have a lot of pop in it. And that's been the biggest problem for Griffin Canning, has been the home runs, because his strikeout minus walk rates are impressive. And they're that of someone who could be a league average starter, right around like a 4 ERA, but he just gives up 1 or 2 too many homers and it hurts him. But in this park against that lineup, I think it's a more favorable matchup. So with the significant hitting edge, Rodriguez has had a great year, 2.9 ERA. Expected metrics are closer to what he normally is, which is like a 3.7, 3.8 pitcher. So a small edge to the Tigers in the the starting pitching, but I do like the Angels. Also, the Angels getting the off day, whereas the Tigers had to play yesterday and use some of their higher leverage bullpen arms behind Skubal. Does hurt them a little bit here in terms of rest, even though they were at home yesterday. So I like the Los Angeles Angels.
All right. Yep. Angels, a part of me, the Tigers had to play the Giants yesterday. It was a makeup game. I had to get that game in yesterday. Freaking Angels. They're getting annoying. They're winning too much. Anyway.
And they're going to keep Ohtani now.
I know, because they're kind of in it. Now they might make a run, and they're not going to, yeah.
They'll collapse in September. It's fine.
Well, that's when Trout comes back. They're gonna get hot. Trout's gonna come back. Then they're gonna collapse. That's the perfect way for their season to end.
I like.
Also, like they may not collapse and just still miss the playoffs with 84 wins, which It's probably the more likely outcome.
That would honestly be the saddest outcome, is they don't ever collapse. Just other teams improve their rosters more, and they didn't.
Yeah, it's a tough race.
Dabundo, you better be there for Charlie if that happens. Our pal Charlie DeSturco. He might need to, put his head in your arms. And
why is that? What did he bet?
Well,
did
because
he bet the under?
he stayed off it for that reason, because
Okay.
he likes them to make the playoffs. But if he ever decides to go in on it, he might need to weep to you. So be there for him. Final
I'm always
bet.
here for Charlie.
Yeah. Charlie's just fantastic during this time of year on Twitter. I love him for it. Love you, Charlie. Talk to you Friday. Final bets for Tuesday. As Zerillo said, not a great day for dogs. So Zerillo, what edges do you see, or how might you want to go about betting some favorites today?
Yeah, a couple of first five edges, other than the Twins. The Dodgers at -155, the Nationals at -140, even the Phillies at -125, something I might play. But my favorite remaining bet on the board is the Milwaukee Brewers at -145. Corbin Burns been much better in his past couple of starts than he was earlier in the year. Seems like he's finding his peak form again, getting much more spin on his cutter. Seems much more confident on the mound as well. And even 2 starts back, he was pitching through heat stroke while he was having his best effort of the season. So seems like Cy Young caliber Corbin Burns, finally fully back in form, and -145 on Milwaukee seemed just a little bit short for me. I made this line closer to -160. So not a huge edge, but could take it up to about -150. I think that's a nice play, and, a pitcher I'm going to keep backing while he looks like this in Corbin Burns. And Andrew Abbott, a guy I was on in his last start. So that shows you how highly I view Burns now relative to the market, considering I've been betting on Abbott pretty regularly.
Okay. Burns and the Brewers have won 5 consecutive Corbin Burns starts, and he's gone at least 5 innings. 5 2/3 was a start against Cleveland at the end of June. He's gone deep into games here. So for a first 5 play, it's going to be Burns on the mound if he continues to have control on the bump for Milwaukee. Dabundo, I know you've got a play as well, and then some Dinger Tuesday, perhaps.
Remember a few weeks ago, Brendan, we did a show, and we were having a conversation, and it was the Brewers were playing the Reds.
This goes right back to your point about the schedule.
Abbott against
here we go again.
Burns, and it was everything in my body is telling me that this number is ridiculous, and that we need to bet Corbin Burns here at home at this ridiculous price, or on the road at this ridiculous price. And I didn't, and then they won by 9 runs.
Yeah, at the very end, you were like, I think I'm going to bet Milwaukee, but I don't know yet. And then you never did.
I never did, and they won easily. And so since then, we had this matchup again.
Yep.
And I did not miss it that time. And I bet Burns against Abbott, and they had another comfortable win. And I'm going to do it again here because, look, I like Andrew Abbott. Like I said, I've said on the show, I'm an owner of him in Dynasty, and I think he's got a good future. But the fact that he keeps getting away with this fastball that nobody can hit for some reason, he's throwing 93 right down the middle and nobody swings at it or hits it, it's very puzzling to me. The stuff on it's not great. His breaking balls are good. I think he's going to be a solid MLB pitcher, but I don't think he's anywhere near the caliber of Corbin Burns, who, Sean talked about the heat stroke. He dominated Philly last week. He's top 10 in stuff plus the last 30 days. His cutter has been one of the 5 or 6 best pitchers in baseball in the last month. It's looked as good as ever. And this Reds lineup, for as much as we like all these young guys, they have been befuddled by the stuff on numerous occasions. And, David Bell even said that it was the best stuff they'd seen all year. And that was the start before the All-Star break. So clearly, these young guys have not seen Burns, level stuff very often in their careers. And they're kind of still working to figure out a solution on it. I know the Brewers do not hit left-handed pitching, which is definitely scary. But the Reds bullpen got more taxed yesterday. They had to go through a lot of their middle relief guys, pitched everybody, as did the Brewers. But I still like the Brewers bullpen more. And I like the Brewers starter a lot more. And, Sal Frelick's been a little bit of a spark. I'm kind of excited. I don't know that he'll
BC, man, Boston College. I did some of his games. I called some of his games at Boston College back in the day, which I have to say back in the day because he's a major league baseball player now.
Yeah, you're dating yourself, Brendan.
It was on the ACC network, which is still kind of new. So.
He Italy Italian legend.
And look, yeah, that's true. And a fellow Paisan. And Christian Yelich is very quietly playing at like an MVP level.
Yep.
Him and Bellinger. It's been the Bellinger Yelly, the Belly Yelly reclamation seasons. Both guys are just kind of matching in the last few weeks, especially carrying what is otherwise a terrible Brewers offense. So, I do like the Brewers quite a bit. And that actually rolls right into my Dinger Tuesday pick. Abbott allows a lot of fly balls and he hasn't really gotten punished for them yet. I think William Contreras is my pick today to punish one of those fly balls, dominates left-handed pitching. Hit one yesterday that I thought was going to get out, and the camera guy made it look like it was going out, and then it died at the wall. So I do like Contreras as my Dinger Tuesday pick against the lefty Abbott.
All right. Looks like, let me see, Weimer hit a home run against Abbott. So it wasn't quite last week. It was July 8th when Burns opposed Abbott. And Abbott was not good in that start. He struggled. He allowed 6 earned runs over 4 1/3 innings, 9 hits, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. Did allow 2 home runs. So one of the other home runs
it's the only game he hasn't pitched well.
Adames
he's been really good in every start except for that one, which is impressive. Including when you pitch in the ballpark that he does in Cincinnati. He's played a lot of home starts. Played the Giants at home. Pitched well against the Brewers at home in the second start. The strikeouts have been coming down a little bit, but he had a 12 strikeout game against the Padres in Cincinnati, which is impressive. So you can see the upside, but you can also see that he's giving up a ton of fly balls. And if he starts allowing more homers, then he could face some problems.
Top 2 teams in the NL Central. And Tabundo does make a good point because these are the final today and tomorrow, the final 2 games between the Brewers and the Reds for this regular season. All right, gentlemen, good work as always. Looking forward to watching tonight. You can find Sean Zerillo and Anthony Tabundo in the Action Network app. If they add any dingers or any other bets as the day unfolds, find them there for all of their picks and analysis. Payoff Pitch, again, is presented by BetMGM. We are back on Friday. Please leave us that 5-star rating, a comment, a review as well, wherever you listen to this podcast. We appreciate the feedback. For Zerillo and Tabundo, Brendan Glasheen signing off. We will talk to you all again on Friday. Thanks for tuning in.